So I hope all of you are doing well. My name is Shriya Bansal and I'm currently working as a software engineer at Microsoft, and I'm also an educator at Tree Level. So in this video, now we are starting with taking a deep dive into the journey of SQL and covering the very first command, which is DDL. Okay, so now in DDL, which is known as the data definition language, it basically helps you, by the very name itself, define the databases, define the structure or the schema that you apply to the databases. But it's not just valid to databases. Remember, DDL commands basically allow you to define the data as well as for databases, as well as for tables as well. And we have a total of 4 commands in this, as you can see over here as well. We have create, drop, alter and truncate. So we have create, drop, alter and truncate. Okay, that is all the commands that are available to us for DDL. Okay, so now we'll go to each and every command one by one and see how it actually works. So when we talk about create, right? Create is basically used to define the database structure schema. Okay, let's say you have a database. Now you want to add a database. You have like a MySQL RDBMS system, but you want to add a database in that. Let's say you are creating a database for a school. So first you would want to use and create a database in the RDBMS system, right? So the command is actually very simple. You write create, you write the thing that you want to create. If you want to create databases, you write database. If you want to create a table, you write table. And if you want to if you want to create a view, you basically write view. So the structure is very simple. First, let's talk about databases for the create command. Let's say you want to create databases. So you do create. Okay, you write database and then you write the database name. Okay, let's see for this as well. Let's say I do create database and this is school. See, it gives you the right response, which says query okay and 1 row affected. That means you have actually added a database over here. Okay, and I think there is a command which is known as view command, which should allow you to see the databases. Okay, let's come to this later. Okay, I think here we'll have to first go through all the commands and then we can check for the commands as well. So here now what we'll do is we'll move on to the next command over here. I think here if you do show databases, yeah, correct. I think I did a mistake. It was not view, it is show. So when you do show databases, remember it shows you all the databases. School is the database I actually created. University is also I created earlier. And these are all the default databases which are actually available. But you just have to focus on the fact database for which you created. So remember there is a command which is known as show databases, which lists all the databases which are available, okay, in the RDBMS system. So that is what about creating databases is. Next thing that we will talk about is how do we create tables. Okay, so here you can apply a simple syntax which is create table students, but the good thing to do is to actually tell all the columns also that you want to create and the data type for each and every column. So the syntax is create. I'm just telling you a better way. Create, you want to create a table, so you mention this, then you mention the table name. Okay, and then here inside these two brackets you mention the column name 1. Okay, and here you mention the data type of that column. Let's say if it's name, then you just want to keep strings. Let's say here you have column name 2, then you mention the data type for that column as well, and so on, to keep as many columns as we want. Okay, so let's see the example for this as well. Let's say I do create table student. Okay, and here you can either do in this brackets or you can do in curly. Here this is not curly brackets. Okay, remember this is parentheses only. So let's say here one of the column I want to keep student ID and it should be of the type integer. Next I want to keep the name of the student and this should be of varchar 20. Okay, varchar 100 here basically means that it should only have characters and the maximum length number of characters will be 100. Okay, age also I want to keep, and I want to make sure that the age is also integer value. So if anyone would want to store or populate or add a row in this table, they have to follow each of these data types. Okay, so here we want to create a table student which has 3 columns: student ID, name and age. Okay, student ID is basically, it is going to store the integer value, and name is basically means that it will hold only 100 characters. Okay, when I say varchar 100, that means you can only store up to 100 characters in a row for name. Okay, so whenever you are adding the name of a student, do not add more than 100 characters. And the third column is age. Okay, and see here, first see, directly it will not allow you to create a data table, right? Why? Because you did not mention in which database you want to create a table. Okay, so first of all you always have to mention, because ideally how will MySQL understand there are so many databases, how will it understand in which database do you really have to create a table? So let's say if I use school, okay, that means now I am using the school database that is currently used, and in that what will happen is the table will be created. Okay, so this is the way you can create table inside databases. So we have seen for database as well, and we have seen how to create databases, and we've also seen how to create tables. Both of them are very, very important to understand. Okay, views part will come together in the later part, and we'll see about views in entirety. Just to mention a little bit about most commonly used data type for table columns. Don't think that there is just varchar or this available. There are a lot more available. First we have int. Okay, if you just want to store integer values. Then we have float also, if you want to store floating point values like decimal values. Double, which is like floating point only but with a larger range, or like bigger numbers can be stored. Varchar, okay, varchar we already see that is used for columns, right? And here what it will basically do is it will store characters and integers. Okay, it can store characters and integers, basically a string. For example, if you want to store str123, that is valid for varchar. Okay, here if I just put in char, right, it basically store that it will just store a single character. Okay, let's t or just false, like a single character will be stored. Okay, then there is also a format for date, okay, where you just want to store date values. let's say you want to store in which date you created a database or something like that, right? In tables, when the student basically joined the school, so you want to store date. And the seventh one is the text. Text is just random text that you basically want to store, right? It's just like long sentences, right? You remember whenever you create, let's say, a profile on LinkedIn, right? So whenever you will create a profile, your name, your age, your current company will all be stored in the database. Along with that, there is also an about me section, right, where you write some stuff. So for a particular student, whatever he or she will write for about me, it will be stored in the database in the about me column. So this should be a text over here, because we will be storing long sentences in this. And this is what pretty much is about the create command. All right. I hope everyone is clear with how the create command basically works. Okay. So here from this, now we will move on to the next command. The next command is basically the drop command. Now what this drop command basically does is, create commands create tables, right? Drop command removes tables from the tables as well as databases from the RDBMS systems. Okay, the syntax is very simple over here. For drop also, we look at two perspectives. First, for drop, we will look at drop, right? If you want to drop a table, you write table and then you write the table name. And if you have drop database, so the casing does not matter a lot, right? You can either keep it all caps or you can keep like small as well. Drop database test. Okay, any like database name that you can put over here. Let me show you. Let's say I do drop database university. See, now if I'll do show databases, university is no longer present. So it actually removes the entire database. Okay, and remember the database will be removed and the data stored inside the database is also going to be removed. So be very, very careful, right, about who you give access to these commands to. Okay, let's say I create another table here only. Okay, let's say I create this table. Now I want to remove this table. So I will do drop table and I will do student test. Sorry, I didn't. So you need to put this. Otherwise, it will think that you have to execute or write more queries in the follow-up line. And you can see this table has been removed. Okay. And you can see now earlier we had the student table as well as the student test tables. But here you can see tables in school. That means in the school database, what all tables we have. And since we have deleted the student test table, only student table is basically left. So that is how you use the drop command. Okay, it is used to drop or remove the databases. Okay, if you want to drop a database, you can drop it. If you want to drop a table, you can drop that as well. So it can be used to remove and delete tables as well as databases. Okay, next is that we have the alter command. Okay, so now what happens in the alter commands is, you want the database, but let's say you want to do some changes, right? You want to do some alterations on the database. For that, you use the alter command. Now, what all can you do with the alter command? It is basically used for altering the table structure. Okay, and what all can you alter? Let's say to basically add a column to an existing table. Okay. Next, I think, let's say what you want to do is you want to rename an existing column. Okay. Let's say you want to change the data type. Of any column, or let's say you want to drop a column, you want to remove a column altogether. Remember, the drop command here cannot drop a column. It can either drop a table or a database. For dropping a column, you will have to use the alter command. Okay. So let's take a look at all of them one by one. Let's say you want to use the alter command to add a new column. Okay, so how does that work is you do again alter, you do table. Okay, you mention the table name, right? Let's say you want to add a new column. Okay, so you do add. Okay, and then in between the brackets you mention the column name, and then you mention the data type. Okay, that's it. Let's see. Let's say you want to do alter table. Which table? The student table. You want to add a column. Okay, so you do the column name, which is, let's say, address. Okay, and here let's say I am putting varchar 200, and see, it basically allowed set query okay. Query okay means that the query is fine and you are able to alter it. So here you have added a new column in the table. Okay, so that's the first part. Here, remember, you can not just add column, you can add columns, right? You can add multiple columns as well this way. For example, here I want to, let's say, address their phone number also, and I want to keep it, let's say, integer. Okay, and similarly, let's say I do want to enter their current class as well. Okay, and that will also be integer because the class will be from 1 to 12. So for that, you can use this syntax. So let's see if we did any mistake over here. Oh yeah, we have added double. This is not required. And now you can see the query is okay. All right, and this will basically help you to see that for a particular table you have altered and you have basically added 2 columns. All right, what you can also do is you can see whether your columns have actually been updated or not. So if you do describe student, you should actually be able to see the actual schema of the table as well. Okay, so you can see the fields initially was student ID, name and age. Okay, then I added a single column address on top of it, which got successfully added as well, and then I added phone number and class, which is I was trying to add multiple columns, and that worked out as well. And here you can see that the type is also correct. Okay, so we saw one part over here in which here what you can also do is, another thing that we learned is that if you do describe and if you put the table name, you actually can see all details of the table. Okay, so these are a few commands that you can actually use whenever you want to see whether your changes actually persisted or not. So with this, what we have discussed is that we can add a column. I'll add a S over here to the existing table, and alter command is very well sufficient to do that. The next thing that we do is, how can we basically, let's say, add a column. Okay, add a column we've already seen. Let's say here now we want to add a column but with a default value. Okay, so what first we saw is how to add a new column. Then we saw how do we add multiple columns. The next thing that we will see is how do we use the alter command, okay, to add a column with, let's say, a default value. Okay, for example, what you can do is here the syntax first I'll tell you, then I'll tell you how we can do it. Alter, and then you have table, then you have the table name. Okay, once you have the table name over here, then you will do the add process again. Okay, and here now let's say you can add the column name. Okay, and here you can mention the data type, whatever you want to add. And here if you put default like this, right, and if you want to put some default value, you can very well do as well. Now let's also see as well how we can do this. Okay, so here I have to add, let's say, a column DOB with the data type date, and the default value I am going to give is, let's say, 1990 01 01. Okay, and here you can see it got added as well. Okay, now if you will do describe student, let's see if it actually worked or not. And now you can see that the date of birth that has been added has the format date and it has a default value as well. So that is how you basically can add a column with default values. So what all have we seen so far? First, we have seen that how we can use the alter column to basically add a column. Alter command can be used to add a column. Then we talked about how we can use the alter command to add multiple columns, right? And third, what we saw is that how we can use the alter command to add columns, okay, with a default value. Okay, that is what we have seen. The fourth that we will talk about is how we can use the alter command to modify an existing column. Okay, let's say you want to do some changes, right? Let's say you want to change the data type for address and change it to this. Okay, so what do we use? The syntax for this particular part is that we again do alter table name, and here instead of add now you use the word modify. Okay, you basically use the word modify over here. Okay, and then after that for modification, let's say you basically put the column name and you put the updated data type. Okay, let's see. Here we have alter table student. I do modify and I want to modify address with let's say varchar 400. I think this should work without this as well. That is what I was thinking also, that you don't have to use this, you can directly alter the column. Okay, so don't feel the need to use these as well. Okay, you can just directly alter the column by putting this over here as well. Okay, and it works absolutely fine. And here if you will now see the updated column, now you will see that address indeed has been added for varchar 400. Okay, and that is how you do this. Okay, next what we will do is we will talk about how do we rename a column. How do we use the alter command itself to rename a column. Okay, so what happens over here is, here also you will use alter. Let me write it with this pen only. Okay, you will use alter itself, you will put table, here you will put the table name. Okay, then you will put rename. Okay, let's say this is the old column name. Okay, and then you will put 2, and here you will put new column name. Okay, so here let's see how we can do the renaming as well. So let's say if I do alter table rename column, let's say I do DOB to date of birth. Okay, I did not mention the name of the table, right? So here you need to mention the table name as well, because how else would it know which table to affect? And let's see here, I try to see the changes now. And you can see very well over here that DOB has now been changed to date of birth. Okay, so this is how you basically update or rename a column. Now in this, the last that we will discuss is going to be about how do you use the alter command to drop a column. Okay, so the syntax for that is again over here, and also add rename column. The syntax for that is simple, that we do alter table name drop column. Okay, and whichever column you need to drop. Let's say you need to drop the column for age, so you can drop it like this. Let's see for this as well. Student drop column age, and let's see the table now, and you can see that the age column has been removed. Okay, so this is how you can do all the operations required on alter. Okay, here it shows you a few examples as well, that if you need to add a new column, okay, you basically do alter table name, and then you do add, and then you do column name, and then you do column definition, whatever you want to add. To modify an existing column, right, you do alter table modify, and then you put the column definition. Okay, and the examples for this are shown as well. All right, so with this, the next one that we will talk about is truncate. Okay, how can we basically do the truncation? Now remember a big difference over here between drop and truncate. So remember, whenever you do drop actually deletes data plus deletes table as well. Okay, but whenever you are using truncate, right, it basically removes all records from a table. Okay, it only remove the records, but it will not completely, I would say, destroy the structure of the table. That basically persists. So how do you use the truncate command? You use truncate table and then table name. Okay, so if I do over here truncate table and the table name, I mark it as student, so it should successfully do that for me. Let's see as well. Truncate table, although we did not actually add any data anyway, but still, let's see. See, it works pretty fine. So this is how you basically drew the truncation part. All right. I hope this is pretty clear. So what all did we discuss? We started our discussion with create, right? Let's quickly re-summarize what we all did. We started our discussion with create. How can we create a table, right? How can we create a table? How can we create a database? We saw the syntaxes for both of them. Then we talked about how do we drop. Okay. Again, we can drop tables as well. We can drop databases as well. Remember, then when we use the drop command, it actually removes the data as well as the table. So here you can drop a table or you can drop a database, both. Okay, but you have to use this command very carefully. If done in the wrong way, it can actually delete the entire data. Next is the alter command, right? Now here what happens is, in the alter command, right, when you do alter table, right, and here you can do any changes or any alterations to the database, and this we talked about as well, what all can be done. And we saw 6 spaces. We can add a column, we can add multiple columns, we can add a column with a default value also, we can modify an existing column, we can rename a column, and we can drop a column all together. Okay, so remember, if you have to drop a table or a database, you do it with the drop command, but if you have to drop a column, you do that with the alter command. And the last one that we talked about is truncation. Okay, that means truncation basically keeps the structure of the table. The table is there, but the data inside the table is deleted. All the rows inside the table are deleted. Okay, so I hope this is clear to everyone. Always remember that when we are doing hands-on practice like this for queries now, the best way to actually learn is to run the queries yourself and then see what output are you getting. Okay, because if you'll get the right output, you will actually be able to have a better understanding, and it also, by default helps you to gain confidence as well. All right, so please make sure you work on this idea and then you move ahead and I would say run a few queries. Maybe design a small structure for like a class or for like a teacher, right? Make a small table, make a small database, do some changes on it and see how it works. Okay, so this actually completes our first, I would say, branch on the tree, which is about DDL. Okay, now we'll move ahead and talk about in future DML, TCL, DQL and DCL. Okay, so stay tuned for all those videos as well.